everyone. Thank you so much for being here today with the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, for our webinar, The Opportunities for Minority, Veteran, and Women-Owned Businesses. So just to move through some housekeeping, I'm going to go ahead and read out a disclaimer here. And one thing I do want to say before we get started is we are going to leave time for questions at the very end of the presentation. So if you have questions during that time, go ahead and leave them in the chat section of the webinar. The information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, or other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the HSU Sponsored Programs Foundation, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence, directly or indirectly, of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. And we can move to the next slide. So I just want to introduce our presenters, and currently speaking is Ashley Tate, and we have Bryan Rheem and Lonnie Lott. Next slide. For today's agenda, we're going to be talking about the Small Business Development Center. I'll be introducing that to you. The available benefits for minority, veteran, and women-owned businesses, targeted funding opportunities, and how the SBDC can help you as a business owner. And a little bit of history of the SBDC. So the SBDC has been around since 1979 and was enacted into law as a network in 1980. And we are currently celebrating, well, last year we celebrated our 40th anniversary. So we are comprised of a partnership between Congress, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, the private sector, colleges, universities, and the state government. State, local, and federal government, sorry about that. And some of the facts that you should know about the SBDC are that each year the SBDC provides management and technical assistance to an estimated 1 million small business owners and entrepreneurs per year. I do want to share a testimony, if you can move to that slide. Okay, we will not move. Okay, too fast. Okay. A couple more facts really quick before we move into that is that we are a nonprofit organization and we provide confidential, no-cost advisory training to small businesses like yourselves. And you can move to the next slide. Okay, there are 36 counties in the NorCal SBDC region, and we are one of the largest regions in the country. We have increased sales for our clients by 193,961,815, and also capital infusion. These would be loans and equity investments for our clients by 492 million, over 492 million as well. So we can move on to the next slide. Now, this is a testimony that is from one of our local businesses, Mary's Pizza Shack, Kathy and Charlu. And they say, I spoke with an SBDC advisor, Joe, many times, and he has also always been available to speak to me, very knowledgeable. And if he had a question he could not answer, he would find out and call me right back. And that is one of the things that we do at the SBDC. If your current consultant cannot answer a question, they will find out for you and they will finish that piece of the area that we're working on with you. They say, I've been listening to all the webinars, great information where people can ask questions and then we answer them for you. And then the staff was amazing and very helpful during COVID-19. And he also recommended recommended the SBDC to a lot of his friends. So we are here to help you guys, and we can move into the next slide. I just wanted to leave that testimony for you. So the SBDC can provide quite a few different things here for different business owners and entrepreneurs. And one of those things is one-on-one consulting, where we will walk you through any issues that you're having in your business and refer you out to any other consultants that may be able to answer your questions if the specific consultant you have is not. There are webinars and trainings that are available, funding assistance, And all of this is done in partnership with the Small Business Administration. So these are some of our consultants, and there is a wide breadth of experience and subject matters that these consultants all work with. And so you have a large, diverse group of people that you can choose from. So there is no cost to you, as I've said before, and that works because we are in partnership with our partners, including state, local, and federal governments. So what can you do to get started? If you're interested in getting started, please contact your local SBDC, or at the end of this presentation, we'll also have someone for you to contact and some contact information that you can take away from this. In addition, we will also be leaving you with the slides from this presentation, as well as a link to the recording so you can watch it thereafter. And now, okay, sorry about that. Okay, we also offer many different webinars and trainings, how to start your business, disaster relief loan updates. There's many different types of webinars and trainings that you will have access to. And I think that's about it for this section. So Lonnie, you can go on to the next slide. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to pass it on to Lonnie, and she's going to talk about the available benefits.
Thank you, Ashley, and welcome everybody. A lot of information about our services that, remember, they're usually no cost to you, and all of our information is always up on our website, which you'll get at the very end. Okay, let's talk about why you're on this webinar, the available benefits for minority, veteran, and women-owned businesses. I'm going to stop my video because I talk a lot with my hands, read some of my notes, and it's distracting. So just know I am behind my name as we move forward. Plus, I'm running this webinar, so. Okay, so what are some of the available benefits to these diversity underserved groups? Procurement preferences, and this is supplier diversity programs. Now, if you're new to these terms, don't worry, we're going to define them a little bit, talk about what the benefits are for being a supplier through one of the diversity programs that you may qualify for in terms of your diverse group. So by the end of my little presentation, hopefully you have a little bit better idea what procurement means and supplier diversity programs. If you're already certified and you're already taking advantage of that, great. And then Bryan, I'll pass the baton to Bryan, and he is going to talk about our favorite subject, show me the money, targeted funding, grants and loans, specifically some specific for underserved, underprivileged groups, others that are just available for all business owners. So what makes inclusive supply chains a priority? There's lots of reasons, but fundamentally, it ranges from social responsibility to the bottom line. Many for-profit and federal and agencies are finding that supplier diversity is aligned with their corporate sustainability and social responsibility mandate for these underserved, underprivileged type of business groups. And we'll talk about what these groups are in a minute and what defines them. It has economic value. Diverse businesses typically encounter barriers that challenge their startup and sustainability efforts. And so access to capital and networking opportunities, effective supplier diversity strategies can help even the playing field and alleviate some of these growth pains or pain points. It has economic impact as we uplift the communities where underserved businesses are located through job creation, increased wages and tax revenue. It lifts the entire community and the quality of life for those neighborhoods, for those cities and regions. In fact, CVS Health reported that in their 2008 diverse spend contributed $5.5 billion to the US economy and has sustained about 31,000 jobs. That was just through their diversity supplier program, which is pretty impressive. And then future growth. According to a Department of Commerce study, the growing minority population will account for as much as 70% of the total increase in purchasing power from 2000 to 2045. So you as a diverse business want to make sure you capture some of that future growth. So here's some of those definitions. And we're going to throw these around a bit. So don't feel if it's a little bit unfamiliar. You'll get more familiar as you start to maybe look into one of the diversity programs and start to go through certification. So diverse supplier. In the broadest sense, this is a business owned and operated by an individual group that is part of a traditionally underrepresented or underserved group. So it's diversity. So supplier diverse certification occurs through a third-party certification agency, usually an organization that promotes the development of underserved or underrepresented small businesses. And we'll talk about 4 of those organizations that do specific certification that enable you as a small business within one of those 4 groups to then be looked at as a diverse supplier for for-profit businesses like Amazon and Google, and then also for federal, state, and type of contracts. The process involves, it's like, you know, certification. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes a little more complicated. That's why we're here, because we can help you kind of line up all of the documentation you're going to need. So it does involve documentation, screening, interviews, and possibly on-site visits, and nowadays maybe visits via Zoom because of the pandemic, to confirm that your business is indeed diverse. So it can be a little bit time consuming, but you got to know that they are really vetting and making sure that the business that's applying is truly an underserved, underrepresented, diverse business. The application can take several weeks to be approved, but once it is, you are certified and instantly become more attracted to supplier diversity programs. Procurement is the process of purchasing goods or services and is usually in reference to business spending. And then I just wanted to kind of tell you that sometimes these diversity programs have sole source purchasing, and that's where there's only one vendor capable of providing an item or a service, and therefore it's necessary to obtain and not necessary to obtain competitive bids. So you're probably more confused than ever, but that's okay. Let's move on. So when you get your PowerPoint deck back, you're going to have my notes that I'm talking about right now that goes in much depth. But because we have a very robust and we have lots of things to share for this hour, I'm giving you the links, and these should be embedded in the PowerPoint that you get, so you can copy them and put in your URL or your browser, and it should go right to this page. So the first one I want to talk about, the supplier diversity program, is our federal and government programs. Small Business Administration has SBA program, and this is these are for businesses that are interested in government contracting, and getting an SBA program can help you improve the chances of winning bids. To qualify, your firm must be 51% controlled by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, which includes women, minorities, and veterans. Some of the advantages of the program is that you compete for set-aside and sole source contracts in this program. You get a business opportunity specialist to help navigate federal contracting, and you can form joint ventures with established businesses through their SBA Mentor Protégé program. And then you receive management and technical assistance, including business training, counseling, marketing assistance, and high-level executive development. So if you've ever wanted to maybe look into federal contracting in your one of these disadvantaged businesses, this may be a program you're going to want to really look at. Then we talk about our DUNS number, and the DUNS number is required for any federal contract applications and applicants So your DUNS number is a unique 9-digit identifier for businesses. Duns and Bradstreet is how we hear it. The number is assigned by Duns and Bradstreet Data Cloud, and it's used as the starting point for any company's what they call live business identity. So it's a process that you fill out and you answer lots and lots of questions about your business. And then they give you this number so that when you start to look at a federal contract application and some of the other certification programs, you have that DUNS number. You've gone through that process. And then the next piece of the federal contracting piece is a SAMS or a gauge number. So SAMS is required to register with the System for Award Management, also known as SAM, so you can receive payments. So who doesn't want to get paid? So anyways, if you apply as an individual or use your own social security number as your EIN, it did say in my notes that I was doing the research on these two, is that you don't have to have a DUNS number or a SAM registration, but we always recommend that you look at an EIN number, and that's something we can help you with. And then go and get your DUNS and your SAM registration. And then finally, the Veterans Administration, the Vets First Verification Program. This affords verified firms owned and controlled by veterans and service-disabled veterans for the opportunity to compete for VA set-asides. Okay, so these are two programs and then a couple of the registrations you're going to need. So let's get into some private registrations. And these are supplier diversity programs that also help you get certified. And the first one is the National LGBT Chamber, and they do LGBT-owned business enterprise certification. In all of these 4 different national certification programs, typically have their own criteria, but the threshold among all 4 of these is that you need to be at least 51% owned, managed, or controlled by that specific group. And then each of them may require that you're a US citizen or a legal resident alien, and that you reside and have your headquarters in the United States. But each of those 4 areas on those websites will go into the criteria, how to apply, all of the steps that are needed. So the next one is the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And their unique position is to promote and market your services to prospective corporate buyers who are looking to build relationships with minority business enterprises, or as they call them, MBEs. If your company wants to connect with private sector buyers, certification is considered the platinum standard in supplier diversity and can improve your financial performance. Other benefits of this Minority Supplier Development Council, as well as the other 3, is that there's lots of networking opportunity. There may be contract opportunities, customized executive education. So they really kind of help support you in your diverse group and move you through that process and link you to resources that way, in addition to what our SBDC can do. The next one is the National Veteran Business Development Council. And this is a certification that assures to corporate partners that the veteran suppliers that they intend to contract with have gone through a vigorous vetting process. And then finally, the Women Business Enterprise National Council. This is the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the United States and a leading advocate for women entrepreneurs. Again, these are the 4 major supplier diversity program certification organizations. And if you go to any of their websites, whichever group you fall in, you can go real deep in the eligibility, the process, how do you get going, and a lot of the benefits. So now that you've been certified and you are ready to be a diverse supplier, what are those opportunities? So these are some of the supplier diversity programs at the corporate level. And I pulled out names and corporations that we all know, and wouldn't we love to have them as maybe one of our suppliers or our vendors that we supply products to. So the first one is Google. They have a very strong diverse and sustainability mission. And so you can connect, it's their supplier diversity program is designed to connect with more minority, women, LGBT, disability, and veteran-owned businesses. Once registered, you'll receive a listing of Google's diverse supplier database. And if you're selected to work with them, they try to pay you within 15 days. So that's pretty sweet, because sometimes if we're with corporate businesses, it can take a little longer. Disney supplier diversity, it's their strategy by developing and leading a world-class supplier diversity process that articulates the value of a robust supplier diversity process, enables diversity suppliers, you, the business owner, to compete for sourcing opportunities. And then they really facilitate a healthy fact-based dialogue between Disney and those external interest groups or underserved groups. So Disney is one of those that really does give priority to one of those four underserved represented groups. Costco, we all know about Costco and their mission statement. In order to represent a diverse supplier base, Costco is committed to providing opportunities for qualified, again, minority-owned and women-owned suppliers in the communities where they do business. Now, if you go on any of these sites, you will understand what we're talking about. You'll see what the process is, what kind of certification is recommended, how you apply to be one of their diverse suppliers, and then how you're listed, and then how their purchasers, the buyers, find you. And then Amazon, good old Amazon, connects sellers with diversity certification to buyers with diversity spending goals. And I'm going to show you on the next page exactly how that works. I'm going to go ahead and see if we can play this video. How am I doing, my other presenters? Am I hanging in there on time?
You're okay.
You're fine.
Okay, let's go ahead, open this up, unplug this. And play.
Google is committed to working with diverse-owned suppliers. Our view is it's better to connect more minority-owned businesses, women, veteran, persons with disabilities, and LGBT-owned small businesses to opportunities within Google.
Google is committed to provide a certification for us to succeed.
Just having them as a client opens the door for other opportunities with other clients.
We're committed to advancing opportunities for minority-owned businesses, and we look forward to working with many more in the future.
Okay, let's stop it. And let's see. I got to remember how to get back here. Okay, we're going to close that. There we go. Look at that, team. I did it. Not too many glitches out there. I am sorry if I was kind of going back and forth with this. Now I got to get back up to get the arrow going in the right direction here. Okay. Now, how do I get my arrow going? There we go. Got to find it. So here, I'm going to end it here, show you this, when businesses on their business page go to purchase from Amazon, right over in the left-hand column, they immediately see these ownership diversity certifications. These are businesses like you who have gone through certification, have uploaded and been vetted by Amazon, and now you sit here where purchasers can filter who they want to purchase their products and services through. So you can click one or all of these, and then the products that you're looking for will pop up that are available only through these underserved, underrepresented certified businesses. So that means that if you really have a strong, if you're purchasing something for your business or your corporation, and you have a social socially responsible and sustainability mission, and you want to support one of the minority groups or a women-owned small business, then you click here and you will see all of the products that are offered by that business, by that underserved group, that you can purchase through Amazon. That's just one example. I'm sure Google, I'm sure Disney, I'm sure they all have these type of their websites and their vetting and filtering processes. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Bryan, and I wanna thank everyone for hanging in there with me as I went through this high level description of stuff that you may not even be aware of, or now you know a little bit more about. And Bryan, take it away.
All right, thank you, Lonnie. We're going to jump into what a lot of people are very interested in, which is funding. How do we get more funding? And so the next several sections are going to be focused on some grants, loan opportunities, and then we're going to narrow in specifically on some of the SBA funding resources. So next slide. We first want to encourage you as a business owner to investigate your local grants. A lot of times they're not advertised unless you somehow are connected to the sponsoring organization. So they really come and go, and they only exist for as long as the funding exists. So the best way is to stay in touch with your local SBDC office. And that way you can really stay up to date with some of the grants that appear, and sometimes you know, there's no other notice other than being in contact with people who are aware of what those grant availabilities are. So that's what we want to first stretch. There are a lot of obviously state and federal grants, but sometimes your local grants are the best ones because you are part of that community. The other thing we want to highlight is grants.gov. And that's pretty much the central place for the federal grant process. You can see they have over $500 billion in annual awards. Grants are typically extremely competitive, and so there is always an application process. A good rule of thumb is if you see an advertisement for a federal grant and it's not on grants.gov, it's most likely a scam. So just keep that in mind, that if there's a federal grant out there, it should always be listed in grants.gov. The NASC is a National Association for the Self-Employed. You actually have to be a member of that association, but there are very specific development and growth grant opportunities for small businesses. I'm not going to dive deep into each one. The reason why we are going to distribute this PowerPoint is so that you can take this and then you can go online and research them yourselves. The Small Business Innovation Research, the SBIR and the STTR, a lot of times are linked together, but they're much more on the technology side for technology innovation and for partnerships and research and development. And for some of these grants, specifically the SBIR and the STTR, sometimes there are grants coupled with contracts. Sometimes grants are merely, hey, we want to infuse some capital into your business. We've seen that a lot with the pandemic, but with some of these grants, they're coupled with the contract, so there is a deliverable on the other side. So obviously that information will be included as you do your research, but that's something to keep in mind as well. Next slide. So there are a lot of government agency specific grants. So the STEP is focused on small business export development. So if you're in that line of trade with exporting your goods, that's something that you definitely want to look on. Agricultural grants, you know, if you're doing something with agriculture, farming, or development of livestock or things like that, there are a lot of grants for specifically a development of that business. The NIST, again, that's another technology grant, and that's a government grant for information technology. There's an education grant focused on education-related activities, and usually that's for nonprofit entities. And some of these grants are for nonprofit. Again, that criteria will be listed very specifically, as you research that grant. And then the EPA is stuff about climate change, air quality, transportation, anything that deals with the health of US residents. There are a lot of grants focused on both the research and development of solutions. Next slide. There is a Women's Veteran Entrepreneurship Training Program that is tied to specific opportunities, grants, and contracts. But we put it in here just because it's worth of note that there's a focus on women-owned businesses and veteran businesses, and this is one that combines two, where if you're a veteran and you're a woman, there's a whole program focused on mentorship and growing and maturing your business. So that's definitely something to look into. The Rural Business Development Grants, that's a grant for really the development of emerging businesses in rural areas. And so if you're a small business and you're looking at either starting a business or expanding your business and you're in a rural area, that's a grant you definitely want to look up. The Water and Waste Disposal, that's something for clean, reliable drinking water systems, keeping, again, sanitary water systems for our communities. And so that's both a loan and a grant program where usually there's a grant coupled with the loan process as well. And then there's the Tribal Energy Development Grant Program. That's for First Nations, verified tribal entities, and that's development and regulation of energy sources.
Brian, can I just add something here? This is Lonnie. I know that when we were talking about the supplier diversity programs, a lot of those are for businesses that maybe have products to sell and or services. And when you look at some of these grants, like the Rural Business Development Grant or even the USDA agricultural grant, sometimes those filter through a municipality or a city or a county. And so if you're a diverse business and you have certification and perhaps you're a consultant or an engineer or a professional type business, sometimes you will look at those opportunities to then apply your request for proposals for as a professional diverse group. And many times municipalities have diversity programs and they will give you extra points being in one of those categories if you are submitting to a request for proposal for a certain type of professional grant, answering to that specific proposal. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I just kind of wanted to add that there, and for businesses that maybe are at that type of business.
Right, and I also wanted to stress that the Women's Veteran Entrepreneurship Training Program, that's for existing service members, vets, and spouses. So that's just not for the actual women vet. That applies to spouses as well. Next slide. The MBEA, they don't actually provide grants, but they are a great resource to help small businesses, minority businesses navigate through the grant loan process. There is a lot of information and it can be overwhelming when you're going through certification. So an MBEA exists solely for minority businesses. And obviously, we recommend contacting your local SBDC office as well, but a lot of times the MBEA will have a lot more experience and depth of knowledge in terms of certification and loan grant application. There's First Nations Development Institute grants, and you can read there, it's providing resources and support to Native American tribes and nonprofit organizations that support development efforts. There's the Asian Women Circle Giving Grant, and that's specifically for Asian American women who are focused on the arts, performing arts or fine arts, and for community groups who are trying to develop that as well. And that program is really growing and expanding. And a lot of these grants, you just really want to stay up to date because sometimes they expand their criteria, they expand their funding. And so it's a good opportunity just to be in touch if you think you're interested in any one of these grants and start that conversation. There's the FedEx Small Business Grant Contest. That's very, very competitive. But that's an annual contest, and you can see right there, that's a great reward for winning that contest, $50,000 and discounted or free FedEx services. Next slide. There's a USDA community grant. That's specifically for getting some of our community's IT services, specifically wireless, broadband, internet connectivity. Amber Grant, that's for women-owned businesses. That is also extremely competitive, but they give monthly awards, and then they take their monthly awards and they give an annual award as well. So if you're a women-owned business, that's definitely worth looking into. The EDA, that's, again, if you're a nonprofit looking at fostering or growing economic development in your community, there's a lot of grant money. As our government is focused on, revitalizing and growing and stabilizing economies in our rural areas. And then there are always private foundation grants. Similar to local grants, a lot of times these are not public. And so they're out there where, your local community grants may be advertised just within your local community. Foundation grants, they're typically not publicly distributed like that. So they're hidden and online, but sometimes it's worth just a phone call, a good old-fashioned pick up the phone and give them a ring and see what opportunities may exist. And then there are always the opportunity for unsolicited proposals. And that never hurts, reaching out to an organization or an entity that maybe is in the same field or industry or space or community, and just see if they'd be willing to sponsor your activities. So let's go to the next slide. So that concludes kind of the high-level grants, and now we're going to move into more typical loan, raising capital for loans. These are ones that we've seen are open and have a history of giving a large amount to minority-owned businesses. So Fundbox, that has a funding cap to 150. And remember, these are loans, these aren't grants. So there is going to be some sort of loan criteria, qualification, usually a credit score evaluation, and then loan terms in terms of how the business will pay back the loan. There's credibility capital. You can see that's a larger limit. There's Blue Vines. Specifically, they focus on businesses that are having trouble collecting invoices. And so that kind of bridges businesses as they wait to collect on unpaid invoices. There's the NMSDC Business Consortium Fund. And that is, again, loans specifically for minority-owned businesses. And then there's our very own SBDC Inclusivity Project. And that's focused on connecting Black-owned businesses to $100 million in funding. And the goal is to connect 1,000 Black-owned businesses to $100 million in funding. And that's something that is a national SBDC program, and we're really, really excited about. Next slide. So SBA Specific Resources, I'm going to try to fly through these because we're running out of time. There's a pilot loan program for small businesses. There's microloans for small businesses, specifically nonprofit childcare centers. There's the SBA Shuttered Venue Operators Grant application. That's for movie theaters or things that have been really affected in the performing arts by COVID. There's the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. If you're in the food and beverage, I believe our local EDC is going to be having a very specific webinar regarding that fund in the coming weeks. And then there's still the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program that's active, or until funds run out. That's for forgivable loans, usually typically used for payroll and other prescribed manners. And the EIDL, that's, you know, the disaster loan, and there's a COVID specific loan that's the EIDL loan. I just put the link there. There's a lot of SBA funding programs on the right-hand side that you can explore. Next slide. How the SBDC can help you. Okay, next. So, you know, as an office, we're focused, in any local SBDC office, we're focused on helping small business owners. We're hoping, specifically in this webinar, you know, we want to communicate to our minority business owners that, you know, we're really focused on helping you navigate all the certifications and the grant loan process. So we look to help you with registration, certification, application, but there's also just business advice. You know, we have a lot of subject matter experts when it comes to marketing, business startup, finances, software application, community outreach. I mean, you name it. You saw some of the initial slides. We have a large team, and each of us kind of focus on specific business areas. We have training, we do webinars, we do in-person once the pandemic restrictions lift. And then we have a sister group called the WBC, the Women's Business Center. And, you know, we do a lot of activities with them. The primary difference between the WBC and the SBDC is that the WBC also helps nonprofits. Here at the SBDC Center, SBDC, we're focused more on for-profit. Both are funded by the SBA, and we work closely with them. And then we also can provide language translation services. Next slide. And this is just kind of going through, we can just kind of breathe through these, and you can read when you receive the slide deck. So kind of go and finish this portion out.
Bryan, can you just talk a little bit about PTAC, our
So the Technical Assistance Center, that's, again, there's, you know, Lonnie mentioned in her portion, the 8A certification, and that's really, the government has a lot of set aside funds for what they would consider minority business owners, underserved, economic challenged communities. There's a lot of federal funding, government funding at both the federal and state level. And so the PTAC, it helps with that contracting procurement cycle and assists with 8A certification. And 8A certification, like Lonnie mentioned, allows you to compete for the set aside funds that the government sets aside only for 8A certified companies. So that's something to really take advantage of if you want to be in that space.
Yeah, and I think there's, that's through our SBDC PTAC, and it's no cost, I believe, if you qualify for that program, right?
I mean, all the SBDC services are at no cost to the business owner.
Okay, thank you, Bryan. I guess,
So,
Ashley, do you want to take over and vet the questions, or does?
I can just open it up to see if anyone needs any questions, and then any questions answered. And I'm sure that you guys will have majority of the questions for the funding and resources that you guys put out there. That was a lot of good information.
I know that David was answering quite a few of them in the chat. David, is there anything specific that you see popped up in the chat, or if anybody has one now that they want to add that we might be able to answer, since we do have a few minutes before we have to sign off?
Is there, one of them is there help for the EIDL, this says EIDL grant, for Native veteran business owners or Indian reservations?
Well,
and I can answer that, or
go ahead, answer that, David.
Okay. Yeah, we can help with EIDL, with the EIDL program. Right now, there is no grant program with EIDL. It's over, but there are EIDL loans that are available through the SBA. Those are going until the end of this year or until funding ends. And so your local SBDC can help you with the application process. You can go to sba.gov and just search for EIDL, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's see.
David?
Do you have to be, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to tell you that James Flowers had his hand up.
Okay.
Question?
Can you read it there?
He just said raise his hand, and so I just was trying to bring your attention to that. James, if you want to leave your question in the comment section, we can answer it from there.
And I mean, reading through this, the group chat, there are a lot of very specific questions. And I mean, the thing that we can recommend the most is really to reach out to your local SBDC office.
I'll tell you what we will do. We can, we have a record of the chat, and I'll take it on myself to answer each and every one of yours individually by email. I'll bring out a couple of more. Let's see, is there help for inventors is one. And one of the best things for inventors is the SBIR and STTR programs. Those are federal programs run by 11, I think, different agencies within the federal government. The National Science Foundation has a program that's pretty much industry agnostic. They'll pretty much fund anything that is innovative and has technical risk associated with it, and that there will be a market for. It's a process, it's competitive, but you can get funding through the program. Your funding can be, by the end of it, could be as much as almost $2 million to help you bring that product to full commercialization. So I would suggest, if you're thinking of, if you're invention and you're thinking about this, look into the SBIR program, website sbir.gov, stands for Small Business Innovation Research. Let's see.
I think there is a question, Amber was stating that about the targeted EIDL grant. And that was, if you received a grant from EIDL back in March of 2020, or between a certain period of time, they're reaching back out to those folks who may have qualified for additional grant dollars, and it's only by an invitation. But that is different than the EIDL loan. The EIDL loan process is still open if you have not applied for it yet.
Okay.
So David, the question from James Flowers was, what programs, assistance, or funding is available for minors? His daughter is building her business and would like to know if they get the same level of assistance, if that's possible.
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know that there's an age limitation with a lot of these programs. I've not seen that. With some of the, go ahead.
Is Reading going to have that youth?
Yes, we are. Yeah, out here we have we're having a children's business fair, which is a youth fair up to 16 or 17 years old, and there may be local groups that do similar things like that. But I don't know if some of these have any limitations on age or not. I imagine it would be specific from program to program. Let's see, we have local funding for startup businesses for a new restaurant. That's going to also vary from place to place. It's tough to find grants in particular just to get a business start. Those are very few and far between, but there may be opportunities for loans. Depending on your personal credit score, depending on what it is you're proposing to do. The SBA certainly has a 7A program, that can help small businesses in early stages, and those are administered through your bank.
I know there's a question here from Dr. Garnes about how to find grants for expansion of telehealth into the North State to improve medical access. I would say those type of grants for that specific type of service, it's probably going to be more coming through EDA or through the rural development type of grants that come down right to the counties or the cities, and then possibly the medical industry, the hospitals and clinics in that region apply for that grant to expand the telehealth. So I would look at it through that vein and see if there's opportunities for then you to provide those services, or if you have a product that is relative to telehealth. I just know that a lot of times that's how it's kind of being, those dollars are being filtered down to help expand that type of programming or services into the community.
EIDL loan interest rate is, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm 99% sure it's 3.5% over a 30-year term.
I think it may be 3.75, but something around there.
Okay. But SBA.gov, you can get that. SBA.gov, and just search for EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL.
So there's a question from Michelle that asks, is this actually for California? And a lot of what we're talking about is nationwide, and that's why we have this screen on here. If you, our office services Shasta and Trinity County, our SBDC, but you can join a lot of the webinars if you're in another region. But if you're wanting one-to-one consulting and specific services for your state or your county, then you would go onto this, you'll see it here, the AmericanSBDC.org site, and just put in your county, and your SBDC, your local SBDC will pop up, and that will give you an opportunity to go ahead and apply or look into the area, the one in your area.
Q Melvin brings up a very interesting point, and we see this all the time. Some people don't have credit and some have bad credit. I was turned down from the SBA loan because of bad credit. I have 2 businesses registered with the state, but people with no businesses are able to receive it. Yes, and that's true. If you can be, if you don't have good credit, a lot of times you're unable to do that. We have a group locally here in Shasta County called SCED, Superior California Economic Development, and they fund small businesses or new businesses to a point. They'll fund them with a small amount. I think it's up to $50,000 if they've been turned down by a bank first under some circumstances. So they're very local. They only handle 2 or 3 counties here in Northern California, but you might want to check. Your SBDC is probably a good source to check to see if there are similar programs where you're at. And regarding the question about young people and their potential availability for some of this, Amber brings up a nice comment. She says youthpreneurs can. They can't do it, and let's see, they can't do it themselves, true, but if the business entity involves adult supervision and representation, the adult would have to sign, and additional paperwork would have to be submitted. So that's something to check, youthpreneurs. Thank you, Amber. That's great.
I still have a question for one of my clients, and I'm going to tell you, Ian, yes, we can assist you with looking at the website for certification and the criteria and get you going, but a lot of the heavy lifting is going to be on your side. But yes, we can assist with that. And I did see, David, that one time one of the attendees did mention that there is a fee for these national certifications, and that is true. They do range, so there could be, you know, just have to work that into your budget. But I'm sure once you got certification, the offset of being a diversity supplier from one of those private corporations would would pay off.
And keep in mind, not all of them charge. SBA doesn't, there's no fee for the SBA certification. There's no fee to apply for any federal grant. If anybody tells you, if you go on grants.com or .gov or if you try to apply for a federal grant and somebody tries to charge you a fee, 99.9% it's a scam. So
I just have one question that I thought was interesting I think maybe this might be for you, Bryan or Lonnie. Are there funding program assistance for businesses importing into the U.S.?
Go ahead, David.
There could be. It depends on the products, and it depends on the it depends on a lot of things. I sound like a broken record, and I apologize. I sound like you know what? I sound like a commercial. That's what I'm sounding like, and I apologize for sounding like a commercial. You guys didn't come here for a commercial. But a lot of your SBDCs, again, they're going to have experts. We have an expert in just importing and exporting, and she's very aware of what those type of opportunities are and what's available. So I would encourage you to contact your local SBDC and ask them.
Yeah. And specifically back to what Lonnie mentioned regarding the certification, there was a question about those fees. They range from sometimes being annual to every 3 years to 5 years. They can vary, as well as a certification process. So sometimes you have to recertify when your dues are up. So it is very specific to the certification you're pursuing.
Well, Ashley, do you want to take us to the end of our webinar today? And
sure.
Okay.
Okay, so your next steps, guys. We are the Shasta-Cascade SBDC, and that's who this webinar has been presented by. So any of the information on this slide is a way for you to contact us. And if you're interested in getting started with our SBDC specifically, you can email emily@norcalsbdc.org, or you can check out our website at www.shastasbdc.org, or you can contact, to find any SBDC office, you can go to the website here at americassbdc.org. And then we have the links down to our YouTube channel, which I would encourage you to subscribe so you can get other information and webinars like this on our YouTube channel. And then we just want to say thank you guys for being here. We hope you had some really good information. I know there was a lot of information in there, but we will be sending out these slides. And again, we'll also have the recording up on YouTube, and you'll receive that link in your email as well. And if you wouldn't mind just filling out the survey that Emily has posted inside the chat, that would be great for all of us as well. So
Okay.
thank you.
And thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and stop the meeting. So we'll go from there, and have a great day.